Hey there everyone, this is Jeffrey with Killaskila Gaming and welcome back to Little Nightmares. Previously we escaped the kitchen by eluding the twin chefs and using the meat hook setup of all things to escape, and we are at a new location that is very close to the outside. So let's get to it. Now, major forewarning here. I ended up having to replay the entire previous chapter because I was literally looking at my notes that there's a place right next to us where there is a light, which I don't technically need anymore, and a gnome, which I do need, and I progressed just a little bit, remembered I forgot about it, and I went to restart the chapter, and it started me in a new location further in the chapter, and I was like, oh no. The only way to get back here was to replay the previous chapter, so... But we're going to go through this crack in the wall. And go down here. So there's our light. And this is the part that I really needed, of course. The gnome. Whereas you don't need the lights, the gnomes do matter. So, that was a lot of time lost for me trying to get back there. That was the only way I could do it. So, you know, that's how much I'm dedicating to this. Alright. I'm looking ahead quickly. I know our next place is another secret room. Just want to make sure I don't miss it. At least I can restart the chapter. So, let's get out of here. I did go and recollect everything just in case, and the gnome that was in the bottle did not appear. So I think I'm safe on collectibles. Go. There you go. Okay. And I got caught by the chefs like 100 times on that last meetup. Not really, but I did a replay it like 3 or 4 times, I think. So I can hear some gulls going off in the distance. Not sure what type they are. We have herring gulls and ring-billed gulls around here. Of course, there's a lot of variation in gulls around the North Pole because of the land around it. No such thing as seagulls, by the way. Seagulls don't exist. That's not a thing in ornithology. They all have different names. It's just gulls. Gulls is the common name. And here we are. So before we, for one, now you can tell why the screen has been teetering on us, why things have been floating from one side to another, because we are on the water, we're in a vessel, and we want to try and grab this chain next to us. So let's do this carefully, and we're going to climb. And that opening that you can see people walking into is the opening into this vessel. And its name is the Maw, which is awesome. Which is why it looks like a giant mouth, right? And the people you see in the background are called the guests. And this area that we're about to enter into is called the guest area. Really unfortunate that I had to replay that entire chapter, and that the chapter doesn't start here, because as many people have pointed out, myself included, this is quite an amazing scene when you first get here to the outside. You can see a gull there. It's almost the size of me. That's kind of cool. Okay, so we're inside the opening. The Maw. Such a cool name. Makes me think of The Medium, which actually had an enemy named the Maw. Go check it out if you haven't. And this is where the game will start you if you try to restart the chapter. So, just hoping that everything worked the way it should have. I think there's a kind of like a game data save for the things you find, so it shouldn't matter for me, but I wanted to make sure I had everything just in case. ground is just like shaking. So previously we ran into the janitor and the twin chefs, and you could tell that their faces weren't really their faces. If you look at the guests, you can see that they're also wearing masks, but the faces underneath are kind of bizarre too. So, and of course you can see another figure in the top left who's known as the lady. And she should look familiar because we actually ran into her sort of earlier on. She was the one who was in our dream sequence at the very start of the game. And when we were looking on the cameras in the lair, she was the one who was humming. And so we are now in like a weird Japanese style location, which is kind of cool, but not entirely what I would have expected. I do like the design though, it's really cool. I don't think there's any lights over here, but we'll check for them anyway, even though we already have the trophy for that. The gnomes and the bottles I think do count, you have to get all of those. But the lights, like I said, we already got the trophy because you don't really need them all. I think they're fun to collect though. Something satisfying about having them all. So we can see where the food's been going. You can see pies, you can see meats and whatnot. Yeah, there you go. Look at their faces. And their tiny, tiny legs and the huge bodies. And how they're chasing after me. There's a hidden location coming up. I don't think it's here though. I think we have to go forward. It's next to like a one of these guys. Can't quite reach me, hey? It's terrifying. When you have nightmares, what do you dream about? I think we're relatively safe here as long as they don't see us. This is disgusting. Ugh. There goes our Nome. Okay. There's our secret location. I don't know if there's light in here. Yeah, there is. Okay. Aww. Oop. Didn't mean to pick you back up. Okay. I forgot to do that in the last one, didn't I? Yeah, I think I know how to get that. Okay. The next one's kind of weirdly hit. It's one of the statues. It's just weirdly located. But not hard to get as far as I can remember. No! She wakes up screaming. Yeah, I would too. I don't know if I mentioned it, but no, I know I didn't mention it. And in fact, I was reminded of it because I had to replay the kitchen. So everything in here should be good, but let's just go and check it anyway. When I was in the kitchen, one of the chefs had caught me at one point. Oh, he's gone. And I completely forgot that if they catch you and there's an oven nearby, they just shove you in the oven. So, it gives a clue as to what they've been eating. Besides, the stuff we can tell is not us. Shoot. Retry. Oh my god, come on. Okay, should be good now. Oh. I should go the other way. Remember, we actually want to go over this way. I think we do. Uh-oh. Go, 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 go. Oh, they're so fast. Wait. That would have been a perfect time to get that, like, almost caught trophy. Oh boy. Oh boy. He's following. Okay. I think I'm hidden. Okay, so this is where we're gonna give a kind of a roundabout way of getting one of the dolls. Does this work? Yeah, it works. We gotta go through here. I'm assuming it looks like that's disturbing. Okay, it looks like it's one of those one-sided mirrors, and there's a chair on the other side with some toilet paper next to it. What are you using it for? These people are sick. You know, we hear statements like there's a bit of a voyeur in all of us, but I'm like, yeah, I think that's understandable, but voyeurism is one thing when people are like aware you're doing it. It's another thing when they're not. Okay. Okay, one of two statues. I'm pretty sure I know where the other one is. And I think there might be a hallway kind of like this. I'm seeing it in an image. It might be at a different floor. Let's take the elevator. Should be down at the end of this one. There we are. Okay. Now, I do believe there's a gnome in the next room. Sorry, I'm stumbling on my words here. And, you can hear somebody snoring away. It reminds me of myself. You see the gnome? So they come here, they eat until they pass out. Aww. That's weirdly cute next to the giant disgusting dude. Okay. Yeah, I know what the last one is. I go over here. Let's not push it. Let's just leave. They're gonna try to kill us, right? Oh boy. This is gross. Oh my god. Oh, that's so bad. Okay, this is disgusting and scary. Oh, oh no, 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 no. They're getting on the table. No, 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 no. Oh. And he fell. Nice hat. Let's just go on eating. Okay. Where are we going? Oh, there's a crack in the door. Like, I know we gotta go that way, but... Hungry again. Again, watch the lights. She's really having trouble walking. Little lost things. That's our trophy for getting the last gnome. That was not an awe situation. That was not cute. That was disgusting. Okay. So yeah. She's been having hunger pains from the beginning of this, and she's been eating progressively more disturbing things. It started off with a piece of bread or something like that from one of the children. Then it was the meat in the trap, which who knows what that was. Then it was the rat in the rat trap that was alive. And now it's one of our gnomes. Go back here. That's our last statue for this section. I think we need to call the elevator, and we are done with this area. Okay, so that was the end of the guest area. which is our second to last chapter of the main story. Oh, I have some notes here that I took down when I did my original playthrough of this. Kind of interpretations of what's going on and in connections to make. So I'm just going to read off some of these because I think they might be of interest. But we now know that we are on this massive vessel, ship, what have you. And of course, I have already said it's called the Maw, and it's basically a partially submerged vessel, which is I don't know if you'd call it a ship for that reason. It's not like one of those ships that does the whole vertical submersion thing. And if you recall that nursery rhyme that we heard in chapter 2, the lair, when we were distracting the janitor, I said if you listen to the lyrics, if you picked up on them, it gives you some clues as to what's going on. So one of the lines in it was having a nightmare in a boat. And so I think that was a reference to the Maw. And then, of course, when we first got here, we saw these giant, rotund, obese guests arriving, and they were overseen by this figure up on kind of a stage. And her name is just the Lady, and she's the same one from Six's dream. And so the nursery rhyme continues at some point to say, help her, and we'll see, which is thought to relate to the Lady. And as we go through this area, you can see that the guests are essentially gorging on different variations of meats, which I will discuss a bit later in this Japanese-style restaurant setup. And it's thought, of course, some of them we saw that they were sleeping, but there's a few I think you can run across where it's not really clear if they're alive or dead. And so it's thought that the guests are being brought here, fed, essentially until they die. And it starts making you think about, okay, well, we walked through this entire place and we saw that they've been getting fish from the water, obviously. But where are the steaks coming from? Maybe the guests, if the guests are dying. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the luggage and the shoes that we were finding all over the ship, clothes and whatnot. So my thought, not my thought originally, but my thought is that probably belongs to the guests. You know, after they die, where are they putting the clothing and the stuff that they brought with them, if anything? And so I will have a link in the description as to where I got some of that information, of course, as far as the kind of discussion and interpretation. And some of it you can get right off the website, but there was one really good lore discussion that I found on it that I thought was really interesting. And so I will share that so you can see it. Of course, the other side of this story, you know, we're learning a little bit more about where we are. We're on, like I said, on this giant vessel called the Maw, and these people are being brought here to eat, hence why there's the kitchen and all that. And of course, we can probably assume that the janitor is there to corral the children for the sake of feeding the guests, I would assume, but we'll talk more about that later. So the other thing that we saw here was the relationship between Six and the Nomes took a bit of a twist. So Six has been getting these hunger pains, as we have seen throughout the story, and it has progressed from her eating normal foods to eating things that most of us would probably think, wow, that's absolutely disgusting. The live rat in the rat trap, and now the gnome who was handing us food, was literally handing us a sausage. So Six bites into the gnome. You can see the lights flickering. It's kind of playing that theme like it always does, that kind of beautiful yet haunting theme. And you're kind of sitting there wondering, why is Six eating the gnome instead of the sausage? And there was something on the website that said something about Six is not an ordinary child. So, you know, that's revealed to us before we start playing if you read that stuff, but makes you wonder. So, that is the end of the guest area. We have one more section to go in the main story, and we will do that next time. So, thank you all for joining, and I will see you all later.